Hello everyone and welcome to yet another live coding and chill. I'm your host Johnny, delighted to be here. Hope you're having an amazing weekend and a wonderful new year 2025. We're in February already. How did that happen? Today we'll be working with Tailwind, my favorite CSS framework. Tailwind finally released its version 4, which has been in alpha, beta, release candidate for quite a while. And I've been making videos about it for quite a long time. Like I've made maybe 2 or 3 of them. One of my very first videos was about Tailwind with SvelteKit. Oh, what a look. It's not this one. This one was about Tailwind v3. And as always, I do like making my videos kind of timeless, if I may say so myself, pat myself in the back. I try to teach you how you will be able to by yourself, if things change, to be able to just read the docs, stay calm, and configure things yourself. So I do think the tips that we have here and the way we go about it will be helpful to you. Just a 5-minute video. It's not like a 5-hour marathon live stream, which we sometimes do here. So I do suggest having a look, and it may help you navigate the docs. We will be configuring Tailwind v4 with SvelteKit, and because like all the cool kids, Tailwind v4 has switched to Vite, and SvelteKit as well is using Vite, the bundler. It should be straightforward and easy, which is why we will be doing it right now. The biggest difference with Tailwind is how you configure it, and we will be going over that as well ourselves later in the episode. But very first thing, let's get to some code. Let's see if it's actually easy now that they've switched to using Vite. And we're just 2 minutes in, so not the usual amount of rambling to begin with, and maybe I should ramble more about why I like Tailwind, the framework, why at the very least, I don't mind if you don't use Tailwind, but I do find people that say they hate Tailwind. That's just absurd. That's just someone else's CSS. It's Adams and team's CSS. Like, how could you hate something like that? We may discuss this later. Let's just install it for now. So the thing is that SvelteKit has this concept of Svelte adders, the SvelteKit wizard, the SvelteKit CLI. You can start a new project or add and pick the option to have Tailwind in your project, or add Tailwind after the fact. But as it stands now, as it stands today, for you, Tailwind v3, which was a great version, lasted for years. But this is why you learn how to do things by yourself and follow the docs, because now maybe you do want to use Tailwind v4, some of the new classes that they have, the columns, for example, selectors. Maybe you do want to do all of the things regarding CSS in CSS files and not in JavaScript. Crazy idea. So this is how we can set it up in an existing Tailwind project. You could end up in a project like this by following the SvelteKit wizard. Nothing too fancy there, nothing related to styling. Really, it looks like this. Maybe I should show at this point. This is what we have. So not even really a CSS reset. I guess it has light and dark mode, which I've set up, but it doesn't really matter. You can see that the browser default styles for links, for headings. So if you go to the contact route where this is not a heading, then this becomes small, because I guess at some point the browsers had opinions in that H1 should be bigger than an H2, which should be bigger than body text. But now we know that for accessibility, you shouldn't use the styling of the type of an element to affect its styling. Anything else I would like to say? So this is the app. It's going to be prettier very, very soon after we install Tailwind. Not because we've installed Tailwind, but because we're going to be using some CSS. We're going to make it pretty, and we're going to use Tailwind to do so, because I like working with Tailwind. Tailwind by itself, it's not boring, it's not nice, it's not pretty. It's a tool that can help you make your websites boring or pretty or functional or anything. Hello, Orshin in the chat. How are you? Nice to see you again. Right, so in our SvelteKit project, we want to add 2 libraries, Tailwind CSS itself and the Tailwind CSS Vite plugin. This is a difference from before because previous versions of Tailwind were using post CSS to parse the magic Tailwind stuff to detect the classes and dynamically, I guess, on a transpile time, add the CSS just for the classes that you're actually using. But this time, they joined the cool kids and they're using Vite for it. So that's what this at Tailwind CSS, that's the organization, Vite tool that we're bringing in is. Oh, Nikos, I'd never have guessed it. Maybe, you know, if it was a New York Times puzzle, if it was a connections puzzle, I would say, oh, a group of like 4 subscribers or Discord users, then I'd be able to put things together and it's like, oh, it's Nico in reverse. Nice. Oshin. So I guess Okin. Right, so Tailwind itself and Tailwind Vite, we've put it in as per the instructions here, and then we need to go to our Vite config and add this in. SvelteKit, at this version of SvelteKit, they're not doing anything crazy with the Vite config. You actually have the Vite config there that you can amend yourself. From previous live streams, you've seen that you can see that besides the SvelteKit one, which is, we're going to be adding the Tailwind plugin in here. That's the thing that we want to do. I should first say. So this Vite config TS, so go a bit slower about this. Let's import the Tailwind CSS for Vite dependency that we just imported, and we're gonna add it as one of the plugins. Doesn't really matter which order you add it in. If you are in an app that is just coming fresh from the SvelteKit wizard, you only have this SvelteKit plugin here. Doesn't really matter. We also have the one that does the optimized images on build time. It can create different versions of an image, so it will be kind of responsive. For example, you can do other tricks that we've shown before. And for icons, for bringing in icons, I'm using the unplugin icons library for this, but doesn't really matter. The main thing is just bring in the Vite plugin for Tailwind CSS in here, add it in your Vite config, and it should just work, is what they claim. Well, one more thing, you need to import the Tailwind CSS, which will include the pre-flight or CSS reset that they have. So immediately when this gets added somewhere in our app, we should see these styles become more plain, I would say. So we have an app.css file, which has my own additions to like CSS reset and some small stuff to apply the background, for example, and the body colors. But in theory, the moment I save now, we should get Tailwind set up in our project. Let's see. All right, seems like it was easy after all. So I guess that's it, done. We can move on with our lives. It seems that we may need a server restart, or maybe not. Vite did seem a bit confused, so it was behaving a bit weirdly, and navigation from the root page to the contact page wasn't quite working. But this is just using the Vue transition API that we also have a video about. Feel free to have a look. Just a nice transition, makes the app look immediately better. Nothing to do with Tailwind. And also you can notice that I make the headings have a bold font weight of 700. So the moment you are in the main route here, and this is active and it's actually an H1, then it gets a bit bolder, I guess. It fattens up when you navigate to the homepage, which is a nice thing. You get for free with the Vue transition API. Anyway, why does the page look nice? Suddenly, it's because we have set up Tailwind. The main thing is that it applied the CSS reset, so things like links and headings don't have the opinionated browser styles that they come by default. That's the main thing that makes it look not horrible. But the other thing is that Tailwind classes do work now, so I had preemptively put in a few Tailwind classes here. You can play around with them. You can see that this one, how big the font size should be, is a text das LD, XL, 3XL, whatever. Classic Tailwind class that you may want to play around with. And with Tailwind, as always, you can add arbitrary values. Use this with caution. If you want your app to have a more coherent design, you shouldn't be reaching for arbitrary values all the time. But for a few places in your app, maybe you can do them. Ideally, you would be adding them, the arbitrary values here, to your Tailwind config. So if you ever want to use something that's like, responsive size, I guess, for text, then you can reach in for that class instead of having to remember that you used the 30% viewport width, essentially, that I'm using here. Right, so nice and fast. Next up, common way to use Tailwind, just apply the classes that you can find in the Tailwind docs. They have like tons of examples that you can use as an inspiration as well. I find the Tailwind docs amazing to like check out even new CSS features and figure out what's possible. The one for gradients, for example, like this, quite cool. The ones for like background blur, for backdrop, lots of cool ones. Here, the classic way to use the Tailwind classes, to use the Tailwind framework, is just on your HTML elements, put in the classes that you want to use, and that's it. That's all there is to it. But next up, one of the ways to do styling in Svelte is to have a style block. And in there, you could say that, oh, I want my H2 to have like a color of like red or whatever. And then Svelte and SvelteKit will make sure that it makes scoped styles in order for this class to only apply in the H2 that this Svelte component can see. So just this one. And if we had another H2 elsewhere in the app, it wouldn't be affected. The color wouldn't be red. So Svelte does some magic to ensure that whatever style we apply in the component here only applies into this one component, scoped CSS. But what if you actually want to use Tailwind classes in the blocks here? For some reason, I find that for responsive design, sometimes it is a bit handier to just have like a media, for media queries, not just responsive design. It is easier to just apply a few classes here in the style block. So maybe you can say at media, like whatever, or when you have the data theme dark, then you apply this plethora of classes. And it's a bit easier than applying them directly in the HTML. Anyway, it is something that rarely you may want to reach for, so let's figure out how it works. How would I be able to apply the exact same padding here in a style block that Tailwind uses for P8, for example? So for consistency, for some reason, I want this style block to have a padding of P8. In older Tailwind, just using the @apply directive and the class you wanted used to work. But now it's like, what's this? And apparently what we need is to reference Tailwind in that style block. So as they say in the docs here, you need to reference Tailwind theme here in the style block. And then it is able to do this. So instead of doing it inline, we can apply the color text red 400. And then it understands, and then you can use it in here. And anything else I would like to show? Probably not. There is... Is there anything else? For some of the classes that you may want to use in order for SvelteKit to be able to accurately scan for the weird utility classes that Tailwind has created, you may need to specify the global tag. Here is what I've read in the docs, including the LLM docs that we have somewhere here. So if I search for like Tailwind, actually, we'll find that in the LLM instructions for SvelteKit, when using Tailwind and the apply directive, you should add the global selector, because there are some rules that won't be preserved, including the ones that have to do with whether, oh, this element, when it's an H1, then do this when this element has another selector. In order for SvelteKit to be able to scan these, you should add this global directive here. So something that's not in the Tailwind docs, but it is in the SvelteKit docs, make sure to add this colon global directive. If you find that the styles are, especially like if you forget, as you saw now, like it just worked, but if it's a weird Tailwind utility selector that has to do with other elements, then it may not work. So remember that this may cut you out at the global directive here, and it will make Svelte understand that you are referring something that's outside the scope of this component and be able to find the class for it. That's the idea. Press the weird button and all of my tabs were demolished, but here they are back again. Right, so scoped styles by combining with Tailwind classes. Again, this can be handy in some scenarios when you want to use media queries and still want the consistency of being able to reference the things that you've set up Tailwind to do, like the exact padding width, for example, the padding sizes here. Cool. Like 5 minutes in. So, hope you're having fun so far. Sip of coffee, feeling low. This has been how to use vanilla Tailwind. Tailwind by itself has like a million classes that you can play around with. So if you find that you're making the same app, the same looking app as everyone else, it's like maybe you need to be a bit more creative with how you use Tailwind classes. But maybe you just need to customize a few things on how Tailwind works. The main one that you should again use with Constant, because there is a performance hit, is to use your own font. So you should self-host your font or use a font source or something like that. But that's another episode and another video. But if you want your app to look different, to have a more recognizable brand style, then you can customize, for example, what the font it is using for headings, body elements like your serif font, your sans font, whatever. And you can also customize the exact colors that you use everywhere there is gray, or your brand colors, your primary colors. And the way you used to do that with Tailwind 3 is in the Tailwind config. You could specify some of the color attributes. How do you do it today? Well, you do it in a way that's more similar to vanilla modern CSS with kinda CSS variables, custom properties, they're also called. But here you put them inside add theme directives. And there is a section in the docs where they're saying, why are we declaring these in add theme instead of just creating CSS variables in the root of the page in HTML? And the answer is that they aren't just CSS variables, as they say here. Tailwind, in the transpile time, looks for this directive and these CSS variables that aren't really CSS variables, and then creates CSS variables for them, but also various utility classes that make use of them. So for Tailwind to be able to use them, you need to specify them in the add theme directory. I do think this is a bit tricky. This is, especially later, it is saying that if you want to use the actual value of the CSS variable, you need to specify add theme inline instead of add theme, which they've been showing like so far, like the, you know, the 500 lines in the docs here, like the more and more talking and more talking and more reading, and then eventually at some point, even after they specify this, is it a different way? Here, to reference other variables, then you need to declare add theme inline here. So that's a bit confusing to me, all of this concept. And if it's confusing to me, like a prime Tailwind sweatlord, I'm sure it's confusing for other people. And may add fuel to the fire of people not liking Tailwind, because why not just use CSS variables? What's this, like the Tailwind specific framework stuff that I need to learn? Why can't I just learn CSS? I get you there. I think they will need to do a bit more work to communicate this. As good as the Tailwind team is and as amazing as the docs are, I do think this add theme, like how do they work with CSS custom properties and stuff, I think this is a bit confusing. So what I want is to specify the font that I want to use in the page. They have an example about colors. You can specify like the primary color and all of that. So yeah, let's say that here or where? Let's say that here, the day, I want it to be in a strong tag because you may have, I don't actually want to use these styles. Let's say that here, because the app that we'll talk about a bit later is about randomly picking the emoji of the day, the official emoji of the day, of the week, or of the month. So this one should be dynamic and a different one in its page. So day, this part, I wanted to look a bit different. So I wanted to have the brand color. So text brand is a color that I would want to have, but it doesn't exist now. Tailwind doesn't know about it. How would it know about it? Well, apparently in the add theme directive, we can just specify add theme brand and then pick any color. Have I already specified this? Is my question. Yeah, I have this brand color here. So I've already had this specified. I have my brand hue, I have my brand color, I have the brand foreground. So if the background is the brand color, what's the foreground be? How we've learned, according to what we've learned with custom attributes, we could say that I want the text to have the color custom attribute here, arbitrary value here, the brand CSS variable, and then it does get it, which is nice. But as we've said earlier, I don't want to reach for arbitrary values all the time. I just want this to be text brand. So how do I make Tailwind aware of this value? Well, apparently add theme, special Tailwind configuration stuff, inline, because I do want to reference a CSS variable that's available elsewhere, as far as I understand it. I want to say that brand is the CSS variable brand. Will this work or not? Let's see. Let's look for color there. Ah, we need to prefix it with color, of course. So for colors, you need to prefix it with color, sure. There you go, and that works. I guess that's the Tailwind magic. It looks for this directive, it looks what you've specified here, and based on dash color, it sees this. It makes the text as brand class available for us. It makes sense why they did it this way. I'm just saying that it's not quite parsable to me. So we'll see. Cool. So custom color here, specified. Anyone could tell me their favorite color. Whatever, violet. And now the random color should be available. And see it on the left. Pops more than the brown color, to be honest. The accessibility of this is a bit suspicious, but hey, maybe when we design the buttons, like a nice button to press, that would be the point. Let's make the background PG, have the brown color, and the text should be the foreground color here, which we've decided it's this. Nico is asking, how would this work with shadcn theme colors? I do have it as a section later. What about shadcn? Because it's a good discussion to have at that point. And color brand foreground, what I want here. Let's style this button and I will get into it. Py2 px4 around it. So this is how you do colors and theme variables. Let's talk about the app we're making anyway at this point to segue into shadcn and the other stuff. So what's this emoji of the X app that we're trying to make here? Well, actually, it's one of the oldest apps that I've shown on stream. I did it as a side project in 2020, believe it or not. And it has reached the point where it doesn't actually work anymore and is costing me money. So it is time to replatform. In big companies, when you have a project, the one thing you don't want to hear about is replatforming. But in this case, you have to do it. Also, it's only one engineer, me, that is doing it. And it's literally costing me money. While in companies, you know, the thing works, just let it be. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. But now, it is broken, and it is going to be only one engineer working on it. There were many decisions that I made in 2020 that I changed in 2023, and I'm going to change again in 2025. One of the interesting things is that even back then, I went with Tailwind, and for the replatforming, I still went with Tailwind, and we're keeping with Tailwind now. But I thought the differences of the new style of CSS config that Tailwind has did make sense to do as a separate episode, especially since I haven't streamed in a while, get us back into the groove of things. But lots of cool things to cover in other episodes. The idea of the original app is that I can't find an API that just gives me a random emoji. And content creation was a big thing, especially back then. Was TikTok a thing in 2020? I don't think so. But Instagram was definitely a thing. And even though shorts weren't really a thing, I was thinking that I could use a random emoji to base my photography on. That's the thing I was thinking about. That you could use the random emoji to make your own sort of challenges. Like take every week a picture according to the officially selected random emoji of the week. It's all coming back to me. Or, you know, write a short poem. Every day, do a workout inspired, an exercise, gymnastic skill inspired by the emoji of the day, or the month, or the week. So I was doing a photography challenge back then. I was thinking, if I could get prompted a random emoji every week, and then I tried to think of a nice like short film I could make around it, that'd be cool. But I couldn't find any API that just gives me a random emoji. back in 2020. So I figured I should make it. And I did, and it was working for years and years, I promise. And then when I thought about refactoring it, for other reasons as well, it was also using React and GraphQL, which I always take opportunities to learn things when I make these side projects. GraphQL was the thing back then. But in 2023, I thought that I should refactor to things I enjoy more, more and make more sense for this project. And we also took the chance to integrate some AI into it. So we had some famous fictional characters that you could ask how would they make a TikTok or an Instagram photo or whatever related to the randomly picked emoji of the day, like Garus from Mass Effect or Tali, and I don't remember who else is there, but I'll need to look at the Supabase database to see what we're asking advice on. So there are lots of angles there, but the basis of the app is just give me the random emoji of today so people can do their own challenges, like do their content being inspired by that. Constraints inspire creativity is the idea of the app, and that's what we're trying to do today, to recreate this without needing Supabase, for example, because there is no real-time functionality here. That's the end goal. Why am I saying all of this? Because over the years, even though the Tailwind framework, CSS framework, was the framework of choice, I didn't reach for Daisy UI, I didn't reach for shadcn. I just made up things according to my experiences in other projects. So if I can find the code here, you can see that I have my own concepts of like a shadow elevation low, a shadow elevation medium, shadow elevation high, instead of like shadow MD, shadow SM, and all of that. I have the concept of surface 1, surface 2, surface 3, instead of background or primary background or brand background or whatever else. And those were just things that I adopted from working in the front-end world for quite a few years. I had the copy for like the text copy color, the copy muted color, all of these things kind of made up by Johnny. But for your projects, you probably don't want the CSS variables as they are made by Johnny. You probably want something more Googleable and something you can explain to your other engineers more easily, which is what brings us to shadcn, the super popular UI framework. Here, you don't need to use it, but it is super popular, so the choices they made for the naming and the custom properties are affecting all of us. Let's look at the React version, which seems to be working more. And the things they've decided, it's like, oh, the background is just going to be called background, the foreground is going to be called foreground, so no surfaces, no anything like that. Cards are going to be a separate thing, so it's not like a regular surface and counter surface or whatever. It's just background and card. You have the popover as well as a separate surface area. You have your primary color, you have your secondary color, you don't have like brand color or anything like that. You have the muted color, accent, destructive, chart. Oh, I didn't know that they had this variable. Anyway, what shadcn wants you to do is specify these CSS properties for you. And if you specify these properties, then you must also go to your Tailwind config if you follow the instructions of how to set up shadcn, and then apply in the old way the new config to reference these CSS variables. As far as I know, because v4 just released, there isn't the CSS config to do the same thing, but I was looking, and I am subscribed to an issue about upgrading the other one, and a few kind comments have actually created the CSS config that you need to reference these variables here. So add theme, they don't have the inline tag here, so does it actually do anything? Maybe not. But anyway, short answer to your question, you can get away with no Tailwind JS config. Even if you want to use shadcn, you just at the moment need to look a bit deeper. There are a couple issues that reference things like that tell you, all right, the CSS variables you were declaring anyway, you still declare them, but you reference them as well in the add theme directive block, and then it will just work. If you run it on an existing project, it will give up. The migrator will just give up and tell you that, well, you're doing things that they aren't natively supported from in the new V4 way. So what we did is just reference your Tailwind JS config. So in order to not break things too much, the Tailwind team did create that solution for you, where you can just reference an existing JavaScript traditional V3 Tailwind config. So you can keep using shadcn without needing to trust some guy that said that they did these theme variables and they work. But since we went through the docs now ourselves, it looks like it's gonna work. Again, is it gonna work or is it not gonna work all the time because we're not doing the add theme das inline thing? Not sure, but keep in mind if something doesn't quite work for you, just add das inline there and it should work for sure. All right, so hopefully that answers that question. Let's go dark mode. Another thing Johnny of the past was doing was server-side render dark mode back then, but I've changed my mind. Now I do have the client-side script that runs immediately before the app hydration to still keep you without a flash of color when you hit the app, but doesn't have the complexities of actually needing to do server-side rendering, deal with cookies mainly in Safari. I found that was the biggest problem. Besides having to explain people that you need like 3 endpoints to make themes work, it was also kind of dodgy to make it work correctly in Safari. So client-side script for theming is the way to go. How does Tailwind do dark mode? There are 2 ways they can do this. So let's go to the header. We could say that much like they have selectors for hover, I guess we haven't shown these. So let's say when you hover, I want the background to be red. So when we hover the header, you can see that the background changes. So Tailwind has this concept of all the utility classes being available for other states, like when a button is active or when you hover over it, stuff like that. They also have the concept of the prefix dark to apply this when you are in dark mode. If you haven't configured anything, it will detect dark mode according to the user's preference. So if you go to the Chrome inspector, for example, you can emulate a few things, including prefers color scheme light. And then you'll see that we don't get this dark mode only specific variable. But if you stop emulating, because my default, my preference is dark mode, you will see that this color gets applied. The dark prefixed utility class gets applied. But that's only based on the user's system preference. Or the emulation if they're emulating through Chrome. How would you make that work with a theme toggle, with a light dark mode toggle here? Well, by default, Tailwind wants you to apply a class, a dark class, at the body or wherever you want that color to be. And So let's emulate that I actually want light mode. We don't see the red header here. And let's go to our app CSS. And say that we have a custom variant for dark where the dark class exists, or dark and then anything nested in it exists, then that will apply the dark mode styles. But by default, this gets applied. Go to the layout. Let's go to the app.html file. So let's say class, or in the HTML here, let's say class is dark. Maybe this is the one that needs a reload. All right, and now it gets applied because the HTML has this class of dark. Let's remove it now. That's the thing, that's the one thing that doesn't hot reload. That's kind of weird. Well, not that weird, you aren't supposed to touch that file. I guess manually I can go to this element and say, hey, class dark. Save. Right, so when the HTML has a dark class, all the dark prefixed classes, like the one we've added in the header here, work. Good, good. But why dark? Why have a class like dark or whatever? Why not use a data theme attribute like I enjoy doing? Easy enough, easier than it used to be. You don't need to do anything weird. We saw that to enable this sort of dark mode, we needed to specify this custom variant for dark. And then we said where you can see this is actually the class. Dot and a name is a class. When you see the dark class, or when you see the dark, some things nested inside the dark class. So as easily as we can specify where you see this, the dark class, you can specify where you see the data attribute dark, the data theme being dark, or whatever you want your dark theme to be named. So here, all we need to do is specify that we want data theme to be dark. And that should be it. Plonk. So now, because that's how I toggle dark mode, when we press this button, it should actually remove it. And indeed, it does. So hopefully that makes sense. Easier than it were in V3. You specify the custom variant if you don't want just the system preferences specific dark mode. You can specify the custom variant for dark. And then in the and where clause, you specify what you want your selector to be. So the first example they use the dark class. I don't like that one. I like using the data attributes and the data theme attribute in particular here. So we say when you see the data theme attribute dark, or anything nested inside something that has this attribute. And you could name this whatever, you know, this could be like Darkula or Dracula or whatever that theme is called. But it is standard to call your dark mode dark and give it as a data theme data attribute here. Hopefully that makes sense. It would if I had explained it better, but I think it wasn't that bad. So, anything else? We did talk about Tailwind's upgrade tool as well. So they have a nice CLI tool. So in your existing project, you can just run this, and it will tell you this class is obsolete. We don't use it anymore. This class has been renamed. This post CSS config, you need to switch it and add this to your Vite config if it detects that you're in a Vite app. And it works for most things. But if you're using shadcn at the moment at least, or when I last tried it last week, it will tell you there are things in your Tailwind config, v3, your JavaScript config, that cannot be automatically migrated to the app CSS config. So we're not going to do it for you. and you'll have to do that thing manually. But if you're migrating an existing project, definitely read for this tool first, and then if it gives you the warning about the config, if it keeps the old config, then you'll have to do this manually, but it will already save you time because it will do a few of these things for you. Cool. Anything else? Let's talk about Catalyst. SvelteKit, this is the point where I want to use about SvelteKit, which has immense popularity, and it's only going to get bigger it feels as even more LLMs are using SvelteKit now to spit out their code. So SvelteKit, super handy. I'm sure they're working on a way to give you a Tailwind v4 config as fast as possible. But did you know that the Tailwind team has their own UI library as well? I think that's one of the places where they've dropped the ball a little bit. And I say this as someone who is paying for TailwindUI and was paying for TailwindUI even before they announced this component library. It's just for React, which is quite unfortunate. But not this React, I never want to this React. But what you get is an example project that looks like this. I do think it looks quite cool. It doesn't have a dark mode toggle, but I guess even here I would be able to emulate light mode. Yeah, there you go. So there is this UI library with a few elements. They're using their great and open source headless UI library as well for a few things, but it doesn't have anything too complicated. So if we look at what you get, you have like alerts and badges and avatars and stuff, but you don't have carousels, you don't have like toasters. There isn't that much that you have, but it does look quite nice. I will say that. I do like this detail that the upper border looks a bit brighter than the lower border. That's something that only a designer would be able to create. Whenever I make buttons, I'm like, you know, more basic. This is a nice detail that they've added here. It makes it look like it's shining. Anyway, if you're looking for maximum compatibility, I would say that you can go for SvelteKit. SvelteKit Svelte is actually using some amazing libraries to make some of the more complicated components work. This fits the regular site. Anyway. Not every project needs SvelteKit in any case. Not every project needs like a complicated components for everything. Every project needs a button. So let's design a button ourselves by taking inspiration of the Catalyst button as well. So you can see that the Catalyst button has like a million classes that you could add. It has versions for like the solid button, an outline button, and colored button. How are you supposed to use this? I'm not sure. Do you specify? You specify the color. I guess you specify whether it's going to be an outline button, and then you also specify a particular color. Interesting. Anyway, I imagine that these classes, for example, are applied to anything. Interesting. Where will we put our button in our app? This could be a button. Contact could be like a boring button, so not sure if I'd want it there. Let's just say I do have a button component, just that I haven't styled it yet. That's the thing that we want to do. So let's bring in the button component here. Let's call it press me. And let's add some styles to it. So the things with buttons, I am using the Vite UI props, I suppose. Nothing more from Vite UI. But according to whether the button has an href or not, it renders actually a button or an anchor. And I guess I want them to have common styles. So let's have const classes interesting autocomplete here. Let's say that they all have like base classes or something. I don't know if we'll actually use this. And let's apply these classes here. Also, new thing with Svelte. The class names or CLSX library is built in now. So instead of just a string for class, you can give it, or use a library, you can give it an array of things to apply here, including an object that will only apply classes if something is true or not. So at the end, I want to pass the class name that the user of this button is given, sure. But first, I wanted to pass all the base classes that we have here. And pass it like this. All right, and the base classes here, I guess it will change this button too. Anyway, we'll figure it out. I want the BD indeed to be the brand. I want it to have exactly so these aren't the base classes actually. Maybe the padding and stuff are the things that we want. I do want so let's say that this is a brand button and only apply it then. And the base classes, who knows what we'll have there? Maybe we'll steal it later from Catalyst. And then we could actually give it an object here and say apply the classes brand if a condition is true. When would that condition be true? Maybe we do give it a variant prop. Say that, hey, when the variant is brand, then apply this. And in the button props, we can actually specify that these also optionally have a variant that can be brand or can be nothing. So now only this button gets the brand properties here. So that's a Svelte 5 thing that has been recently been added, where these classes only get applied conditionally. Hello Milos, great to see you too. It's fun to stream. Do I want base classes for buttons? For accessibility, we will need to add a few of them, I suppose. But for this button, let's say that we want it to be variant brand. And since it's a brand button, it needs to be a fun button. So let's give it the relative spacing in order for the classic trick of when it's active. Let's make it have a minus top of minus 0.5, which will make it look like it's bouncing, which is the best thing about buttons. And those also work if you go by keyboard there and activate it by keyboard. But you can see that there, like the outline is not that nice. We should give it like a nice ring or something. So let's use the catalyst styles and see where we end up. What is gonna happen if I give all of these crazy classes here that they have for the base styles? Forced colors, what are these things? Maybe I shouldn't apply things that I don't quite understand. So it's an array of classes it has there. Jesus. But these icon classes, who knows what they are? Don't know them. And let's spread the base classes, I suppose. Oh no, applied already. So you can see that immediately they get like the... Oh, they don't get focus outlines, which is quite interesting. But they get borders by default from what we've added there. I wonder why they want them. And let's see the colors that they have. Let's steal the ones for like violet, for emerald. They're not, they're made for light mode as well. They must have specified some CSS classes by themselves. I see, it is made for light mode. It does look nicer on light mode, indeed. Anyway, instead of just copying what they have, they do a relative button, they do isolate the stacking context. Wow. Made it in like flex, align the item center, justify center, sure. This makes these things look nice. Give a gap of 2 horizontally, interesting. Rounded corners with a border, which maybe we don't want for everything. And they're also specifying the text size, which is interesting. I don't know if I'd want that. So let's say no border by default and no bolder font by default. The sizing, they're doing like a weird calculation here for the px and py instead of just saying do 1 or 2 or whatever. Sure. Small screens, they give it more spacing, so with fingers you can tap it a bit more easily. Great, that's nice. When you focus, no outline. Interesting. And no ring either, which doesn't feel correct. And when it has data disabled, should this also be like a disabled? Its opacity becomes 50%, which sounds fair enough. All right, so these regular buttons look okay. This brand button that bounces also looks okay. I don't need to apply these things, I suppose, because they're there by default. Yeah, I'm slightly worried about the outline color. So here with the focus, we want a ring. Don't they have any ring styles? Ring. No. Anything on focus? It is specifying this. I guess they're using the data does focus instead of focus thing. And maybe the library they're using their what do they call it? It's hero icons, but headless UI. Maybe headless UI is adding these data does whatever attributes here. So yeah, not convinced about that. Anything else that has data here? No. Maybe it manages whether it should be focused or not a bit better using the data attribute. It makes it more controlled programmatically than what its browser thinks. So maybe that's the idea. So now we do get the outline, and we can make it be brand, I suppose. And then it looks a bit better. Right, the problem with most of these buttons is that sometimes I do want them to be like inline. So I don't want every button to have these sizing properties, actually. So yeah, I won't know how to amend this. Maybe all the sizing ones I don't have. So here, they don't look as ridiculous. But for the brand and other buttons, I can still keep them. Not too bad. All right, so we've played around with colors a little bit. Maybe with the header, now that I've shown this thing that only applies to dark mode. What I actually want is to have the brand background all the time. Even the outline gets in the way. Whoops. Guess it should have like more margin. And I could also be specifying that this is like a dark theme heading. So if I had like a radio button there, it should be like themed for dark mode. Maybe that'd be fun, regardless if you're on light mode or not. So you're on light mode now, but this is dark mode. So we've seen that we can specify the color scheme of anything, including the header here. So we can say that the color scheme of our header actually is always dark. So if we had like an input, it would be a dark input. If we had like a search input, for example, here, it would be the dark style if you want, regardless of whether you're on light or dark mode. That could be fun. Or instead of doing it like this, I guess you could also specify that the header always has the data theme dark. That would also work, because that would apply the thing we just did, because it would scan for this, color scheme would be dark. Probably a better way to do it, now that I think about it. All right, so I think that's it for tiling stuff. For migration stuff, the container is the thing that did have a configuration that if you wanted things to be center aligned, which I always wanted by default the containers to be like that, they will not be. So you can see that this is left aligned now. It has the container class, but the container itself is not center aligned, which is kind of interesting. I would always want the containers to be center aligned. If you also want that, you can customize the container utility by applying this. So let's do this. Another directive that they have at utility, and you can say that an existing class actually extend it and also apply margin inline auto. Why do you also want to apply padding? I don't know. I guess that's why, that's what they were doing before. So Tailwind configuration, we have like a little section here. How big do we need to make this? Quite big. It will never be obvious. All right, so here, the container we want to change, we want the margin inline to be auto. So that's the margin X, but it's the new way to say it, which will make things easier for you if you have to make your app work across locales, for example. So now you can see that this gets center aligned just fine. We've applied this. If you want things to also, your containers to also have some padding, I guess that's what they were trying to show us there. You can specify it here, something you could do in the Tailwind config. Now you extend the container utility class like this. And I do have a inline padding actually specified, which I call padding inline, interestingly enough. That's responsive. So can I apply this? Who knows? So here, it would never touch the edges because I've specified this. Correct? No, incorrect. We'll never see the D there. But I do think if I just specify here padding inline CSS variable, it should just work. My responsive inline. Should I call it something else? Maybe, maybe not. Anything else that I would like to show? No. So I think we'll just go to the last section, some JavaScript. We'll try to hit the emoji API to actually get a random emoji instead of showing this under construction one. And we don't... This actually does nothing. This is kind of nice. This. Oh, no, that theme is always dark. Silly me. I broke the animation from... so here's a use case of why you would want to specify that the color scheme for this part is always dark. You don't actually need it. Anyway, don't want to break this animation. What do I want to do? That's the last part. The button, I'm keeping the button. I wanted to make a comment, right? So maybe a styling comment. Set up Tailwind CSS before for styling. We're styling on him. So why am I doing this? Because we want to show a random emoji here, and I've been trying to find ways where you can get like all the existing emojis, but sometimes they're out of date. Like Unicode keeps adding emojis every year, and a lot of libraries are abandoned. But the one that I found that seems to be staying up to date and has been over the years is the emoji toolkit. And interestingly enough, in this public GitHub project, they have this emoji JSON that has the name of each emoji that exists, which is quite cool. The version that the emoji was introduced, its category, order, I don't know what that is, display, I don't know what that is, its sort name, and some alternate sort names, which is cool. You may use this for substituting, like Discord does this, Slack does this. You do colon, GitHub does this, and then it will find the +1 for you. You don't need to actually open your Mac keyboard thingy and get this list of emojis, which is handy. You can just do grimace and then it will find the emoji. Diversity base, gender, does it have children? Lots of things there. But anyway, in theory, this huge JSON has every emoji in the world. And this emoji strategy JSON is the same thing. This, I believe, is the Unicode code for the emoji. So key to that. What's the difference between emoji JSON and this one? I don't know. They look the same to me. This one is bigger, so maybe it has more emojis. Not sure. Maybe it just has more information per emoji. So unclear. This one has keywords, for example. Maybe we'll use this one. Anyway, this is the place that I found that can help us get all the emojis in the word. In a future episode, if you think it's interesting, instead of what I used to do is go to the Unicode official website of emojis and scrape every emoji that they have. And if there was a new emoji, I would upsert it in my database. In a Heroku Postgres, and then in a Supabase database. But now I want to put it in a Cloudflare D1. And I'm thinking, instead of scraping the Unicode database, which would be the most accurate thing, maybe I could just get this list from this handy repo that I've started. I think that'd be cool. How do we do that? Well, you can hit the GitHub API for a public project and get any file. So I think that's just what we'll do. And let's give Copilot a chance and see what LLMs are up to nowadays. Let's do it with our interface pattern. Our poor man's dependency injection. See how that goes. And call it a day. So let's say that we have a repository for emojis, and we have an emojis API. What's this called? Let's say API. And this class will implement an interface that will create in a separate file. Emojis repo interface.ts. And what should it do? Interface, emojis, repo interface. Let's get all, and it returns a promise of emoji, and we can also have a type. Of emoji. What do I want each emoji to have? Name, for sure. Category. Do I want all the short names? Maybe. Do I want the keywords? Maybe. Do I want the Unicode output? I guess that's the code. So I would just call it code. Export this interface. Implement it here. And in my dependency injection hook, not the one stuff yet, I want to do, in my app.d.ts, let's say that in the locals, don't have user session or users repo, sorry, not the real thing. We will have a DB at some point. So not real things. In the locals, we want an emojis repo, and let's use directly the API repo for now, and we'll refactor later to use the database repo once we have our own database, but we don't have it yet. In the dependency injection handle, I want to say that in the event locals, the emojis repo is a new emojis API repo. Great. And in my main page here, instead of having a hard-coded emoji, I want to get this from the server. So as data, yeah, just use this one. With this, my UI, so the TypeScript, let data equals props. SvelteKit magically will pass the data that you return in that load method here, and we can use the data emoji here. In theory, yeah. So if this changes, it doesn't even need to be an emoji. updates. Great. And here, I actually want to use, to get an emoji, to get a random emoji from my emojis API repo. So maybe that's the thing that I would want to use there. So first, let's say await from the locals emojis repo structure it immediately. Doesn't exist now, but it will. So it will implement the interface and then just get like the first one, and we'll see what happens. All right, so I'm doing all of this because for funsies, I want to say to Copilot, let's make sure to bring in the interface here. So look at this. Let's see what Claude has to say. So let's see if it remembers. I think it's gonna be like api.github.whatever, and then it's repo org repo name file. Let's see how this does. My doggy is eating. But it's also doing the mapping. And it did figure out that it has sort name and sort of alternatives. Yes. It's sort name alternates, not alternatives, but hey. All right, let's bring it in. I never understand why this takes so much time, but hey. So each one of them indeed seems to be keyed by the code, and then this any is not ideal, and it would help us figure out that sort name alternatives is a typo. All right, save this. Can you stop making it green? Can I read again? No? Hey Farangelo, nice to see you as well. It's great to stream. So raw GitHub user content is what they're claiming here. Is that correct? I don't know. But it's the organization, the repo, the brands, and then the file if it's at the root, I guess. Okay, fair enough. Is it? Does GitHub have something? It says Copilot. We did know it better. So yeah, it's raw GitHub user content claims it's the same. Let's ask our chat again. Did it make it up? I don't know. It's claiming that it's not all the time there. So it had a button to accept the changes. Anyway, let's use our eyeballs. The name is there, the category there, sort name is there, sort name alternates, not alternatives. It claims that it's maybe there, so maybe not each one has it. Fair enough. Keywords is there, Unicode output, and that's it. So all of these things, I don't know what they're supposed to be. It's probably looking at the wrong file, not the strategy one. So Unicode output string. So emoji toolkit emoji is a thing. And each one of this is an emoji toolkit emoji. And we can say that this is an emoji toolkit emoji. It's not an array, is it? It's a record. Good. So maybe we don't need to type it anymore. And here we can search for if it has this, and it's this, and spread them, or else it's just a sort name. Add this to spellings. And it has some error cases, I guess. So interesting. It's throwing there like this. Okay, fair enough. It's the pair of fetching emojis, this, and then we say failed fetch emojis. This emoji URL. Fair enough. It's TypeScript, I guess. Would it need to be read-only? This makes it private by default. Makes it protected by default, I should say, adding the shebang hashtag. Alright, so it catches the error, then throws the error. Oh my. I guess for the console log. Unclear. So yeah, just do this. No try cats, just do this. Anyway, so we have all of this. Now this has a get all. If I refresh, do I get a random? Do I get the first emoji, the green face? Apparently not. get an object. Ah, of course, because I get all of this. I get all of this. And this should have the code, for example. Right. So how do I actually show the emoji? How do I actually show the emoji? So that's a good question. Let's see if Copilot chat knows. Would I just need to do the SvelteKit thing of saying add the HTML? Looks like no. Ah, put it in template literals, it says. So if I put it here, it claims it's gonna render it. Lies. From code point. All right, that's something. Is it actually a number? I guess. I guess depending on which system you're using. Ah, of course. You need to parse it as hexadecimal. Obviously. All right, Copilot. Cheers. Nice one. Okay, not the best emoji, but we do think it's correct. So should I parse it already? Maybe not. Let's get a different one. Okay, let's get a fun one. All right, getting somewhere. Let's ask Copilot again. Let's go to our interface. And get a random one. So give Claude the interface. Let's see, will it just do it? So essentially, I want a random item from the array. This is inefficient because the array is huge. If we put in a database, it would be faster to get a random row from the database instead of doing the fetch request, all of this just to get one. We have done seeded random before. Let's apply this. Where will it apply it? Good. It also did it in the more classic way. I prefer the const way, fat arrow way. So let's do that. And now we go to our page. Just await a random emoji. Every time we refresh, we should be getting a random one. Sometimes it's going to be a good one. Hey, we got the Tailwind one before. Cool. And even without a database, if we set the cache control, like const 1 day, use it here. Then, when we deploy this, we get a way to have the emoji of the day. We may have gotten rate limited at this point. Whoops. Oh, there you go. Perfect emoji. So quick break, and I'll be back to end the stream by a recap. we're back. All right, so let's recap what we've done today. Let's go to the agenda, talk about what we may do next time. As always, I go through curiosity journeys. I use these streams to go into other curiosity journeys that hopefully take you on the journey and help you learn something or get inspired to do something else, to build something. I firmly believe 2025 will be the year of Svelte. It has been for me. 2024, I did mostly Svelte, and I do think 2025 will be the time of the year where I only do Svelte for work, not just live streams, which is super exciting. But what did we do today? We configured Tailwind v4, which recently released after a long time in alpha, beta release candidates. The biggest change is how you configure it. So we did the CSS only config. That is the modern way to use it, and talked about how you can still work with the tailwind.config.js or TS. So if you still want to use shadcn now without like an official guideline on how to do it, you can still just use the config there, and talked about the Tailwind migrator that will do a lot of the work for you. Make sure to read the docs because they are really, really nice. Speaking of inspiration, I get a lot of inspiration just by looking at the Tailwind docs. They are quite nice. Feastables are using Tailwind. Quite funny. But also, we talked about TailwindUI. We looked at Catalyst a little bit, take inspiration on the little button that we've done. But the main thing is that we refactored this emoji of the day app that I'll need to refactor further. We did our custom light and dark mode here. The rasterization of this emoji is quite crazy. And in the future, maybe the next live stream, I would love to talk more about migrating and rolling with punches and changing decisions, replatforming as needed if you need it. Why would you need it? When would you do it? Today, we just kept Tailwind as the CSS framework solution, but upgraded to version 4, which had the slight differences in config as we talked about. But in the following live stream, it would be great to take what we've made today, which is a page that gives you a random emoji, and in production, thanks to the public hash, then it will actually keep one emoji for the day. But that's just a makeshift temporary solution. Ideally, we'd want to take all the emojis that we're getting from a public repository on GitHub, store them in a database, and then keep a record of the choice for the day, and also provide choices for weeks, choices for months. The idea is to inspire people to go through a challenge where I make one photo according to the emoji of the week, every week for 1 year. That sort of thing. I make like a TikTok according to the emoji of the day. That's the idea behind the app. And having the emojis in the database will let people see the record of historical choices that our app has made. You can do some nice analytics out of that. But we could even provide more helper methods there. As I said, I haven't found a really good random emoji API. Maybe we can build that one if you think that'd be fun. But really, it's just a nice way to show some Cloudflare features. Again, Vercel is not paying me, Supabase is not paying me, Heroku is not paying me, Cloudflare, none of the various tools that they have, they're not paying me for it. But I think it's the right solution for this one, that's why I saw it. So how to put all the emojis in a Cloudflare D1, I think it would be cool to talk more about the Cloudflare register, using the Cloudflare cron triggers to sync the database with the GitHub repo that we're getting the emojis for, maybe like once per month or once per week, but also to do the emojis of the week and the emojis of the day. Every day we could have a scheduled task, a cron that runs and actually makes the selection of what is the emoji of the day. It could also post to like Threads or Blue Sky or whatever according to the choice that it made. Some cool things that we could show here. Let me know if you think they're cool. I do know that they would be more efficient and less costly than the super-based solution that was live now. So it's fun to do that as well. But that is going to be it for today. And the more I use Cloudflare, the more I want to use it. I guess it's the reason Milos is saying that it's looking like your stack as well. If I have any plans to try and use Zero Sync, I do actually. I am subscribed to the Fly newsletter, which is one of the few newsletters that I still read after a while. They don't put out that many issues, maybe that's the trick. And it's not dry, it's like nice to read, it's fun. Anyway, Fly is gonna be offering managed Postgres now. And it's gonna be early access at some point. And I asked them, hey, if, if you get me in early access, I would be interested in showing it off, paired with Zero Sync, which is like this local first development thingy, which lots of people are super excited about. Scott has done quite a lot of videos and talked quite a lot about it, and has indeed done quite a lot in the libraries you can use with it, the SvelteKit helpers you can use to make your life easy when you're trying to work with it. I don't share Scott's excitement, but I have some interest in it. And my main problem would be it only talks to a Postgres database now. I really like using SQLite. Like for the past year, I've been using SQLite as much as possible. Do I really want like my own Postgres? Yeah, it's easy to create like a Postgres or use AWS, whatever they have there, DynamoDB or whatever it is. But my excitement drops about this solution into, this sounds interesting, maybe I'll have a look. But if Fly is also providing an easy managed Postgres solution and I can investigate both those things together, then I'm all for it. So if that happens, if I'm in early access Fly, I think it's likely that we'll do a look into Zero as well, combine those curiosities together. Thankfully, there's quite a lot of projects that we can work with. The tier list one would be great for that. This is like a tier maker competitor, I suppose, where you make your tiers of like the best companion characters in Mass Effect 2 or tier list or whatever. So that one is prime use case of wanting it to work local first and offline, because maybe you're in the tube and you want to do like a quick ranking and then share to your friends. I don't know. The point is that it's likely that the emoji of the day refactoring is going to be Cloudflare D1, but I am keeping an eye on Zero in general, and especially if I can combo it with Fly managed Postgres, then I'll more likely to have a look for a different app, hopefully for one that we're having instead of starting yet another one. Yeah, rambled a little bit about it. Hopefully that's the one you're talking about when you said Zero Sync. I think that's the one you mean. So we've talked a little bit about this in the Discord as well, from a lot of the team, or the team that made replicas too. So yeah, I will see if we can have a look into it. But if the next stream is regarding the emoji of the day, it's likely we'll be talking about the Cloudflare D1. So setting that one up, having it sync with our main data source that we're kind of scraping, the GitHub repo, and also so the Cloudflare cron triggers. Cron are scheduled tasks, you run them every once in a while. Super helpful. For like 20 years I've been doing crons. It's right alongside spreadsheets, getting data out of spreadsheets and exporting like CSVs and whatever. It's those things that feel like will always be relevant. So I'm excited to see how you do it with Cloudflare. The solution I did before was just have a scheduled GitHub action, which is something I haven't seen many people doing, having a GitHub action run on like a schedule, but it is possible. And even before I was using the Heroku scheduler add-on, I think it was, back in the day, which I think still has a disclaimer that it may not work, which is quite interesting. Milos is saying, hoping Cloudflare also drops containers this year. Oh yeah, I did update Docker just before the stream, because the latest version has been giving me malware alerts on my on this version of macOS. But anyway, containers, cool. Dockerized environments, that has changed from 20 years ago. Being able to run things isolated in a container so easily in pretty much any machine, it's a dream. Like, at least I can't even put it into numbers how much time was wasted trying to run things like on a Windows machine versus like on the Linux server or whatever. It was tough back in the day. It's easier now. All right, I think with that, we will call it a stream. Thank you for joining me in this first stream of 2025. We made it to February without the stream. Oh Lord. But we did it. We're back. We'll do another one at some point. We had, by any metric, a high record of streams in the last year by stream amount, in how many streams we did, how long the streams were, how many marathon streams. It was quite a lot. We'll likely not hit those numbers this year, but still, we'll be in touch because I do enjoy doing this. Let me know what you want to see, because what I enjoy most is teaching people helpful things. So thanks again for spending a bit of time with me, especially the people keeping me company in the chat. And I hope you have a lovely week coming up. Catch you later.